Hey guys, it's Bailey. What's up and welcome back to the channel. Today I want to talk about some tiny palettes, like petite pocket-sized palettes. It comes from recently I've been traveling a lot and I have found that I'm gravitating more towards small palettes that give me some versatility and some room to play. Like they offer more variety than a trio or a quad might, but they are still nice and sleek and smooth and they don't take up a lot of space in my makeup bag. And I was inspired by a few palettes in particular, thinking this was kind of a new phenomenon in beauty, but once I started digging in my makeup collection, I found that there have been a ton of palettes out there over the past few years that are super great for traveling because they're so nice and small and compact, but still offer more than just 3 or 4 shadows to help you really get the look you want when you're on the go and still give you a little bit of room to play. So let's go ahead and get into them. I think I probably should have started this off by saying that most of these palettes are going to be complete winners, like I wouldn't be talking about them if they weren't, with one exception, and that is the newest one I have to the bunch. And I'm only talking about it just because this really fits the bill and I thought it was going to be an absolute winner when I picked it up. But I gotta say, I am not a fan. This is from the brand Laura Geller and it is her new Luxe Finishes eyeshadow palette and I got the Cools. I recently talked about this on my Instagram stories, blaming Jessica Braun for my newfound obsession for looking for cool palettes because overwhelmingly we have a lot of warm palettes out there. So I was on a mission to find some cool palettes and I picked this up on that mission. It looks gorgeous, and at first glance I was really excited about it, but every time I've used it, I'm actually wearing it today, and every time I've used it I just find that these shades are not all that pigmented, pretty patchy. The shimmers in here come off as really chunky shimmers. It's really hard to layer them to get like a really dense sheen or high shine sheen. And then when it comes to the color selection, I find it's a little lacking as well. So you have 2 mattes in here. One is a very pale, obviously cool leaning pinky cream shade, and the other is a soft gray matte down here, and neither of them are all that pigmented. And I feel like in general this palette could have used a deeper and yet still cool leaning brown tone to complement all of the other glitters and shimmers you have going on. Then like I said, I mean the other shades that are glittery or shimmery in here are beautiful, but they just can't be built to the kind of opacity that I really love and I'm used to from a ton of other of the palette, especially the brands I'm talking about here today. So unfortunately, this package is the cutest. It's super sleek, kind of fits the bill in every way, shape, and form, but in terms of quality and shade selection, it just was not all there for me. So if you've been seeing this, or if you have seen this and been curious about it, I think I have some other palettes in here that might be a little bit better for you. Okay, this next one is an absolute winner, and the first one that I can think of that came in packaging that was literally as big as a credit card. Unfortunately, it's kind of an honorable mention because it's no longer available. It's the Smashbox Full Exposure Mini Palette. Basically a mini version of the Full Exposure palette, which is still available, but I'm so bummed that they discontinued this. However, they do still have a matte version of this, like this size, available on the Smashbox website. And then since then, they've also come out with their cover shop palettes, and they have a ton of these guys that, although they are, you know, quite a bit bigger than the original one of these, they still have amazing formulas and they have a ton of different color palettes to choose from. So they sent me, I think at this point I have all of these that they have sent me, but just a few that I have selected for the video. This is the all matte version of this eyeshadow palette, and then they also have a gorgeous metallic palette, or at least this is the one that I've pulled, but they also have a super colorful one. They have one that is soft nudes, like champagne-y shimmers, like they have so purples. I mean, they have just about every kind of color palette in this collection, and the quality is great across the board. In fact, I have a whole review. If you want to see what's out there in this collection, I will link to that in the description box below. Next up, and one that is almost as small as that tiny full exposure palette, but this is the Zoeva Cocoa Blend Voyager palette. I think it's this, it has the word Voyager here, but I'm not sure where it fits into the name. But it's this teeny tiny palette. It has 6 shades inside, and it's a great blend of textures. You have 3 mattes, 3 shimmers, and also some colors. I mean, it's mostly neutrals, browns, but you do have that pop of berry down here, warm notes, so it's kind of predictable in that way, but at the same time, that also makes it a really good go-to palette that you know you're gonna get great looks out of when you're on the go. You have the staple matte matte shades if you want to do something softer for the daytime, but then you can really punch it up with these high shine shimmers and even that colorful shade down there if you really want to. Next up are the Huda Beauty Obsessions palettes. The only one of these that I have is Electric Obsessions, but I've heard amazing things about the rest of them in this collection. This is a very bold palette, so it might not be for everyone, but they are absolutely gorgeous gem tones. Again, you get a nice mix of matte and shimmer in here, and 9 shades. Like this teeny tiny little palette, what an efficient collection of shades in here that you get in such compact packaging, plus that nice size mirror up there. So would really recommend you check these out if any of the color palettes strike your fancy. And then I don't know why I have done kind of the higher end palettes here at the beginning, but I promise after this next pick we're gonna hit the drugstore super quick. But I have to mention the Urban Decay the mini Naked palettes. There are the Naked Basics 1 and 2. This is the Petite Heat that I'm holding up, and then there might be one more, I can't really remember, but they are all really fantastic and they all do a great job at putting a good selection of shades in a tiny package. Here, for instance, you have some neutral colors, but then you get up into those orangey or burnt orange tones, and then that deep dark sienna up there. Just a really nice spectrum that gives you a little bit of flexibility, but they are all matte finishes, which some people may love, but if you want that, you know, shimmery finish in there, you might opt for any of the other palettes that I've talked about earlier. Okay, now let's talk drugstore. First, starting off with the brand Collab. I think these are so underrated. This is the Palette Pro eyeshadow palette in the shade selection Best of the Day. Very reminiscent of Modern Renaissance because you have that same selection of neutrals, berries, even that kind of burnt sienna over here. It just is such a classic but still yet kind of colorful palette, but they also have quite a few, I mean not a ton, but a few other color palettes to choose from. This is just the one I gravitated towards because I know I love Modern Renaissance, so I know I'm gonna love this color palette on me. Then of course there is the Wet n Wild Color Icon palette collection. I pulled the Comfort Zone palette because it is one of my absolute favorites, period. From the drugstore, from Wet n Wild, ever. I just love this. It truly is a Comfort Zone palette, but is also a little nostalgic because it was one of the first times I ever got to try that duochrome blue-brown shade, and it was like what opened my eyes to the world of duochrome. So this color palette will always have a special place in my heart. However, it has undergone new packaging, it has a new formula, and I think they might have added a shade or two two shades to this because the original had 8, this has 10. So it's a little different from the original, but still the same collection of colors, still work just as beautifully on the eyes. And they too have quite a few different color combinations, different palettes, color palettes to choose from within the Color Icon collection. And last up comes from CoverGirl, and I think these might be some of the more underrated palettes from the drugstore. I just don't see them getting a whole lot of coverage, and maybe it's because some of the textures are inconsistent. Like sometimes I'll dip my hand in a metallic or a shimmer and it will come off a little patchy, it'll take a little bit longer to work with, but honestly it's no harder to work with than the Laura Geller, and I find the results are way better. So I think these deserve a ton more of attention. And so the one that I have here today is the Jewels palette, but they have a ton of others like a peachy tone, one that's very reminiscent of like the Too Faced Sweet Peach. They have one that's very reminiscent of the Urban Decay Naked palette, like very classic selections of colors. But this is the one that I picked because I love it when a drugstore brand can do colorful shadows well and colorful and great textures well. This has not only the mix of gem tones, but it also has these beautiful metallic textures in here. And so this is one of my favorites, but there are also a ton of other shade selections to choose from if those are more your speed. And those are my picks for tiny palettes. I would love to hear what you guys think about all of these. If I missed any, let us know down in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye guys!